what happened there. Again, before I get into my main topic, which is John General, let me just mention very quickly Miles Sampa. Miles, many of you know, Miles Sampa is the former mayor of Lusaka, and him and I were sort of friends for a little bit, but we parted ways because some of the things that he said, some of the things I said, we didn't see eye to eye on certain things. And, we weren't buddy-buddy. We were sort of friends. He wasn't a long-time friend of mine, But anyway, be that as it may, many of you know that Miles went to Matera Police Station to file a complaint against me because I called Matero fake. And I used John General's fake miracle as a backdrop to my statement. What I said was everything in Matero's fake, including John General's so-called miracle. You remember that miracle? Some paralyzed guy came into the church and on a mattress, and John General got some water and sprinkled it on the guy's legs. The guy just stood up, casually stood up, as if nothing happened, And for me, that's a red flag, because anyone that's been paralyzed for years, that paralysis means you can't really feed yourself, you can't go to the bathroom by yourself, you can't help yourself in any way. Everything you do has to be aided around your existence. And so for someone to all of a sudden walk after years of paralysis and act nonchalant about it, the word nonchalant, just act as if it's no big deal, that's a telltale sign that that's a fake miracle. Because if you are truly healed of an ailment that's been plaguing you for years, and then all of a sudden you are set free from that ailment, the joy, the ecstasy that would burst from your persona would beggar description, is what it is. But we all know that those are just fake, antics that this so-called John General uses to hoodwink his flock and his people and deceive people into thinking that he's a genuine man of God, when he's anything but, more like the spawn of the devil, if you ask me. But anyway, Miles went to the police, he complained, and the police phoned me, because the police are what's the word? They're out here to do their job, okay? When you go to the police with a complaint, sorry, are we good? When you go to the police with a complaint, tell me we're back on. Tell me we're on. I'll fix all of this in post. Sorry, when people call me, I have to cut the phone and all that. Please tell me in the comments if we're still on. If we're back, just go ahead and say that to me in the comments, and then I'll continue with my story as I know it. Are you telling me or no? Tell me. Are you telling me or no? Are you guys breaking it down for me? What are you doing? We're good. Thank you. We're good. All righty. So he, he went to the police, and like I was saying, when the police call you, they're not partial. They are impartial. Well, at least they're supposed to be. So the police officer calls me and says, look, we got a complaint and we need you to come in and talk to us. Now, before I went there, a couple of bus drivers warned me and said, look, we're hearing that because Miles has sort of incited a group of youth to identify your car when you pull into Matero, and they'll stone your car. Our advice is you go to Central Police. And I said, yeah, I think that's accurate. So I think that's safer. It's prudent to do that. So I went to Central Police, and I sort of indicated to the officers there that, look, Matero's calling me. I don't feel safe. Is it possible for us to conduct these interviews here at Central? So the officer in charge of the district phoned Matero and said, look, what's going on? Mwewa's here saying that he doesn't feel safe. What's the deal? The officers at Matero said, no, if mwewa is at Central, we can come and pick him up. And the officer says to me, he says, just hold on. He says, look, if they come and pick you up, they're going to bundle you in a big truck and everybody's going to see that you've been arrested. You know, I don't think you want that. The best thing is you just go there. I said, okay, I'll go. Mr. Mwewa will be there. So I went to Matero. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I did. Because this is not my first rodeo, okay? I've been down this road before. I'm 56 years old. I'm not a spring chicken, okay? I've been around the block a couple of times. I know how the narrative goes. So what I did was, before I went to the police station, I called the officer and I said, officer, do you mind telling me what exactly this is about before I come to the station in Matero? The officer from Matero says, no, Mr. Mwewa, those are things we can't divulge on the phone. It's just better you come when we discuss the matter. So I said, okay. So I said, do I need to bring sureties? Two working sureties, just in case you decide to throw me in the cell? Should I do that? No, Mr. Mwewa, you are being presumptuous. You are thinking too far ahead. Let us just deal with one thing at a time. You just come. That thing of bringing sureties, Mr. Mwewa, I mean, that is neither here nor there. And no one has indicated that. What we want you to do, Mr. Mwewa, is just come. We discuss. I said, okay, that's fine. Hung up the phone. I turned around and I said, draw up two sureties. There is no way in hell I'm going to Matero without sureties, because I know how this is going to go. And so I got the two sureties and I got to the station. And when I got there, I found some young guy with a big camera recording me. He was standing at the reception area inside the police precinct and he was recording me. And at first I didn't know who he was. My first inclination was that this was ZNBC. I thought, well, ZNBC are here? Goodness. So I asked the guy with the camera, and it was a huge, big Panasonic camera. I asked this kid, he was just a kid, a young boy, maybe 20 years old, 25, you know, at most. I said, so who are you? He says, oh, I'm from Bishop General's church. I said, you're from where? Bishop. I said, well, what are you doing? He said, no, I was told to come here and record you when you arrive so that we recorded these proceedings. I turned, there was a police officer, a plainclothed female police officer standing at the reception. I turned to her and I said, excuse me, officer, who the hell is this? You know what the officer says to me? Uyu, Sinamuziba, I don't know who this is. I said, officer, you got a guy with a gigantic camera recording in your precinct at your reception, and you don't know who he is? Something doesn't smell right about that, because I know the police frown upon things like that. And it was at that moment that the officer in charge of the precinct, he burst in and he said, you young man, what are you doing? What's that camera? They confiscated the guy's camera and all that. They took the little memory card in the camera and said, you will be arrested if you are recording here. If you want to record Mwewa, record him in the street, the way he records people. This is a police station. You don't have the right to come here and start recording people. It is a crime. Uzamangiwa. You'll get arrested. So, you know, they sorted that out, and finally I walked into the officer's office, and they started to interview me. So, and I'm sitting there with my two sureties, and the officer says to me, he says, so who are these guys? I said, oh, I brought back up, just in case, you know, if you're going to arrest me, we're going to do what we're going to do. Oh, so I gave them a statement, and I told them exactly what I felt. I felt that John General, this man, John Nundwe, is not only a con artist, but he's a purveyor. He's just a con. And he takes advantage of people's naivete by performing these amateur tricks where he pretends that people are being healed. for the sole purpose of hoodwinking people. And the reason they do that, as I said in my last broadcast, is that, you know, they want people to testify about false miracles because these so-called miracles are the engine that drives the idea that this is real when it's not. It's all fake. They do it for money. They do it because they want to get more people on board who are vulnerable, who are desperate to come into this conclave of deceivers and convince them that these guys, these so-called prophets, are the answer to their problem. So I explained all of that, and then the officers asked me, but also Miles Sampa is explaining, is complaining that you said everything in Matero is fake. So because Miles is the MP for Matero, he has lodged a complaint against you. What do you say to that, Mr. Mwewa? I said, look, first of all, Miles is crazy as hell. Okay, let's just put it out there. Second of all, Miles is not the embodiment. Miles's name is not Matero. So how does he come to complain for Matero? Okay, my point is that in my describing Matero as fake, it is a notorious fact that the characteristical attribute of Matero, by and large, is one of forgery, because Matero's known for that. It is a notorious fact. It's like calling Chibodia a drug-infested hub. That's what it's known for. So after that, you know, the officer said, okay, Mr. Mwewa, we've heard your side, but according to the law, we have to apprehend you, and I have to warn and caution you, and you shall be formally arrested. I said, okay, that's fine. And I said, what's the procedure? He says, no, since you've come with your sureties, we shall do the needful, and they shall be filed in, and this issue, if you take it further, no problem. But since you've come with sureties, let us do the procedure so that you can be released. I was out of there in 10 minutes. Why? Because I thought ahead. Had I listened to the police officer, had I listened to the officer that said to me, no, Mwewa, you just come. Don't worry about those sureties. Just come, we discuss. I mean, we're men. Had I listened to that, I'd have gotten there, they'd have booked me, they'd have thrown me in jail, and then I would have now start making frantic phone calls here to the office saying, look, could you draw up 2 sureties and bring them over? That would have taken 2 hours. And Miles Sampa complained about that. He says, no, Miles says, why is it that Mwewa was released in just a few minutes after being arrested? Well, the reason is because I went prepared. So the officers sort of encouraged me. They said, oh, Mr. Mwewa, you know what? This thing, just sit down with Miles, sit down with John, and they iron this thing out. You're brothers. Reconcile. I said, you just used the wrong word. The moment you said reconcile, I am off that boat. I am getting off of that bus. There is no way on this side of God's green earth I'm going to sit down with John General and Miles Sampa. Are you kidding? That would be legitimizing their crooked ways, and I'm not doing it. Okay, if this thing goes to court, so be it. We'll face court the way it's supposed to be faced. We will go where the evidence takes us. Okay, so I'm not worried about that, and I'm not trying to showboat. I'm telling you the truth. Okay, I'm not trying to exhibit some sort of aura of bravado. I'm just being honest with you. I know what I'm talking about, and we're going to go where the evidence takes us. And so that's the explanation to why I was able to get to the station and then leave in the shortest possible time. And I must tell you, off the record, okay, I won't tell you who the officers were. Off the record, the officers said to me, we know these guys are scammers. We know. We know they're scams. I said, well, if you know, how come you're not doing anything about it? He says, well, we need a complainant. We need somebody to come forward and say, boom. Which brings me to November 2018. There was a complainant like that. You know what her name was? Her name was Matilda Mwanza. She was a victim of a scam that was hatched by John General and his co-pastor in conjunction with John General's wife. You know this? Do you know this story? It's a lady, she was a retiree, she had 70 million kwacha. This was before the currency was rebased. 70 million in those days, which would be about maybe 100,000 today. Okay, you do the math. I'm not a mathematician because I know somebody on here is going to say, no, well, that's not correct, it's not 100. Well, you do the work it out. Okay, mwewa 70 million kwacha in 2018 would be equal to what in 2025? Tell me. Okay, so this woman, this story was everywhere. And I'm going to demonstrate to you the skullduggery ness of this John Nundwe. It runs far deeper than you think. It's been running far longer than you can possibly imagine. It is so entrenched that in order to uproot it, you have to perform a major amputation. And I'm not joking when I say that. So in November of 2018, a woman by the name of Matilda Mwanza shared a story with John General's co-pastor. She said she had a toothache and she had come into some money, which was about 70 million in those days. She was a retiree. She had this money. John General's co-pastor said to this woman, she said, look, I can take you to my prophet. He will pray for your toothache. And not only that, but he will teach you how to multiply this 70 million. It's going to be turned into so much money, you won't know what to do with half of it. If you give this money, put it into the hands of John General, this 70 million is going to miraculously... Ooh. 700,000. Really? Amazing. Is that real? Sorry, I got a phone call, so please tell me again if we're good. Tell me. Are we back? Sorry, I got a phone call, so. Okay. All righty. So, John Nundwe's co-pastor, his name was Kambazo. Kambazo. That was his name. John Nundwe's co-pastor, Kambazo, convinced this woman who had recently come into a retirement money of about 70 million kwacha, which would be about 700,000 kwacha now. This co-pastor of John General convinced this woman that that toothache you have, my prophet can pray for it. And not only that, this 70 million kwacha you've just received, if you put it into the hands of John General, this money will multiply. She was a woman. No consultation. And women, listen to me when I tell you that these people are like wolves. They are like sharks sniffing blood. They know you before you even know yourself. They are so cunning. They're so deceptive. They can see a vulnerable person a mile away. And they know exactly what to say to you in order to convince you and put you on a plate and sift you as wheat, devour you like meat on a plate. They know exactly how to do it. They have the gift of the gab. They know how to talk to you. They know the language to use. And so they convinced this woman. When she was taken to John General says to her, you need to pay a tithe from that 70 million kwacha, pay a tithe of 21 million in those days. John General said, now you have to give us your ATM card. Listen to the level of ignorance of our people. When you are deceived, so much so that you not only ignore reason, you suspend it as well. Not only do you ignore reasonable thinking, you suspend it. Someone aisa kuri mwe asala ndati i 70 million mukwete nga mwampera, I'll multiply it for you. Na mwamfwila. John General said to the woman, pay a tithe of 21 million. Give us your ATM card so that we pray over it, and the money that's left in the bank will multiply. Now, madam, ATM ba John General na bakashi. John General's wife, her name is Maureen Kakwende. She is the accountant of that thing called a church there in Matero. The wife took this woman's ATM, and over a period of time, she started withdrawing money, a total of 30 million kwacha. She withdrew from the bank without the owner knowing about it. A total of 51 million kwacha was withdrawn from the bank. Remember, this was 2018. When this woman, when her eyes opened and she realized, wait a minute, this is a scam. She went to the police, reported the case to the police, the same Matero police station. Same Matero police station. The police there in Matero have these records. Same police station. When this case began to advance after this woman complained, John General and his wife used manipulation to compel, force, coerce, and deceive the woman into withdrawing the case. That is the power these people have, the power of deception. It's not a spiritual power. Okay, I don't want you to misunderstand. I want you to get me straight. Okay, because in Zambia, when you say bali kwata power, oh bamaka, bali kwata mti, oh power, bali kwata power. No, what I'm saying is they have the ability to deceive people through their cunningness, through their conning ways, through their manipulation. It's called manipulation. It's not a spiritual power. It's purely, it's coercion. It's manipulation. If you can convince a woman to give you her ATM card, it is possible to convince her that something awful will happen to her if she continues this case. These are people that cower under the shadow of the manipulation of these people called prophets. These are dangerous people. They will divide your families. They will cause havoc. They will steal your money. They will leave you out in the cold, dry, standing out there with nothing in your hand but broken pieces and nothing left to show for it. It's true. So, dangerous people. So do you now see why we call them fake? It's fake as hell. Con men. And they are living amongst people. I mean, that John Nundwe's church is full of women who have been raped by that guy, sodomized by that guy, taken advantage of by that guy. John Nundwe has molested children in that church. The evidence is there. And people still go to that church. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. John The chickens have come home to roost. The cows have come home. Okay? The cows have come home. The chickens have come home to roost. Your con game is up. The jig is up. You understand? You and your friend Miles. Now Miles is walking around with a gun. Homeboy doesn't even know how to use the thing. I mean, if you're going to start shooting guns, hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with arming yourself, protecting your home. Okay? If you want to, bear arms, if you want to carry a pistol on your person to protect your home, and that's your choice, nothing wrong with that. You're fine to do that, go for it. But if you're going to be trigger happy, you know what the Word of God says? He who lives by the sword will also die by the sword. I mean, I saw a video of Miles handling a gun. Homeboy didn't even know what the hell he was doing. He's out there looking like a kindergarten cop, pulling that thing and, doing all kinds of stuff with it. I wouldn't be surprised if he shot himself by accident. And that's the truth. Honestly, I don't mean to sound facetious. I'm telling you the truth. I would not be surprised if Miles shot himself in the foot. Homeboy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So here it is, he posted a video of him playing around with a let me tell you, you better know what you're doing. Okay? You're going to get bit, as they say over there in the South. All right. Thanks for watching. I got to go. Bye.